Hi, my name is Tara Thomas, and I'm a chef and urban farmer based in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm here with Free People and Cherry Bomb to share an amazing barbecue recipe with you for the Summer Supper Club series. I've been vegan for 6 years now, and that's what got me into cooking, and that's evolved into my dream to become a farmer, healing with food and sharing that with my community. Food is kind of my medium to connect with my community, whether that's at the garden or with other chefs and other folks. Anyone can connect over food. We all need to eat. Summertime is my favorite season to cook because of all of the things that are in season and what's popping up in the ground in the region, because it's the most vibrant time of year. I really care about fresh fruits and vegetables, so summertime is my time where I shine with my cooking. I love just harvesting amazing fresh herbs like cilantro and mint, which we'll be using today, and even like edible flowers. And I have these sunflower seeds from my garden, fresh garlic, and even my favorite spice, coriander, which is all dried from the sun. And then I'm gonna pair that with a meatless option for a barbecue, which will be a Maitake mushroom that's gonna be marinated and then grilled to perfection. And I'm excited to share that with y'all. So to start with Maitake mushrooms, you're going to marinate them before barbecuing them. And what's important in the marinade is the vinegar element, which when you marinate it with the vinegar, it allows it to stay quite tender and flavorful, and all of the umami flavors kind of come out of that. And we're going to balance out with a little bit of miso paste, this white miso, which will bring some more umami, but more of a sweeter, nuttier note, which I think will pair well with the fig leaf later. Some grapeseed oil or a high heat oil like avocado will work, and that's just gonna allow it to get crispy. So now that we have the base, we're gonna start adding some flavor, and the first part is going to be the coriander seeds that were dried in the sun, but I also have some fresh ones here which are a bit more green and punchier. Just pull them off of the branch. It's okay if a little bit gets in there, but don't make it all about the branch. And then I'm gonna do some dried ones. I think about a tablespoon of whole coriander seeds works, but also powdered is fine. I'm gonna put everything into a compost bowl to compost later. I think coriander paired with the Maitake mushrooms will really add a bit of that zesty flavor, and the fig leaf is quite like nutty and fruity, so it'll really come out and pull the green flavors out from something that looks so robust and make it a bit more interesting. And then we're gonna go in with some fresh spring green garlic. Regular garlic is fine, but I really enjoy spring garlic in the early summertime because it's quite fresh, and as you can see, the outside isn't so woody and crispy and dry. You can actually like save this part for like a broth or blending it to a sauce or something, but it's full of flavor. It's not just like the paper on the outside. We're gonna use about 3 cloves, chopped up thinly sliced. I just peel this off. It's like you don't have to like crumble it all off. Throw it in the compost or in a container to save it. It's so beautiful. There's like so many layers. And these are some big cloves, so I think this huge one can count as like 3 of the garlics that you'd find at the store, so we'll go for that one. Maybe a little extra. I want some extra garlic. I'm not gonna tell you how much garlic to put in because that depends on you. Taste things as you go. So now we have our garlic, and I'm just gonna thinly slice it. I don't really care too much about like making it into like a mince, but just like having the extra texture is nice when you start digging into it when it's fully cooked. Pop it in. When it is fresh garlic, you need so much less, but I love garlic, so I just like putting so much of it when it's fresh because I can really like taste how green it is, and it's not so acidic and has like a bit of sweetness to it. And when I put that into the sauce, it really complements the other green elements in it. So we're gonna add a bit more acid because like acid's gonna keep making it more of like a tender like barbecue, and I think lemon's a nice additive. We're gonna add a teaspoon of lemon juice, and then I'm gonna start whisking it together. Since there's more full pieces, You can really see all the ingredients come together. It smells very zesty, but the umami-ness is pulling through. And now it's time to marinate the mushrooms. So I think this is a great like size piece of how we want to start, but there is like a woody end on the bottom of maitake mushrooms, like on this one. And we're just gonna cut that right off. I'll actually just start pulling it apart so it's like easier to handle, because it is quite intense when you get it for the first time if it is like at this size. So it's nice to start pulling it apart, kind of like a broccoli or cauliflower where there's like florets, and it reveals like kind of the cross section of it, which looks kind of like, yeah, like a broccoli or a cauliflower, like a tree. This is kind of like around the size that you want, but feel free to, you know, be intuitive with the sizes and think about who you're going to be cooking for. So here we have all of the, I guess we can call them the florets of the mushroom, just laid out in a casserole pan. And we're gonna take our marinade and just spoon it over, and mostly on the florets because that's where the flavor is going to be held. I love the whole coriander in this because when they like get in touch with that heat, they're gonna start popping and become less like woody and be something that's really easy to chew and be full of all these like the oils and the vinegar, and not be just like a little seed in there. It'll be so much more. I think I'm gonna start placing them inside, on top, making sure that each of these is full of juices. Maybe flip it over. This is ready to start marinating, so we're gonna set this aside for 10 minutes and start working on the cilantro oil. So cilantro this time of year in New York City is in full bloom because of all the sun in the sky and the heat, and it's just full and green. I can't even stand cilantro that's not from like a local garden or a local farm anymore because of like how much flavor that it has when you can, you know, get it from somewhere local or even grow it yourself. So we'll start by cutting it up into some bigger chunks, the stems and all, because that all has flavor and we're not worried about that because we're gonna strain it all out. Put it in the food processor. Before we emulsify the olive oil into it, we will first make sure all this is crushed up, and then we'll emulsify it right into here. So we'll start off by blitzing it on high. After the cilantro is blending for about 30 seconds, then add the olive oil slowly and emulsify it. It's all fully blitzed up. It kind of looks like a pesto, but we're gonna strain it out completely. You could keep it if that's the flavor that you want, but I want a really nice clean and bright oil. So remove the blade, scrape off all of that nice olive oil and cilantro mix. I'm gonna scrape all the edges and push that to the sieve, and a nice beautiful green color of oil comes out. Put what's left in a bowl, and you can use that for like a pesto later on like a toast. Maybe mix it in with a cheese or nutritional yeast or some nuts. But right now we're just doing oil. What I love about the cilantro oil is that the cilantro really pairs well with like a nice green extra virgin olive oil, but it really brings out the green notes and adds a bit more of like the fresh punch that sometimes you're like wanting from like a nice green olive oil. It's okay if a little bit of the sediment gets in there, but that's not what we're fully going for. Now that our mushrooms are marinated, it's time to start wrapping them in the fig leaf. You can tell by a fig leaf if there's not a fruit on the tree by like the lobes here. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big like palms, and then there's like all these like lobes. So I just lay them out kind of alternatively like this, and then I'll take 3 about 18-inch long strings and I'll put them underneath and line like 2 to 3 up depending on the size of your mushroom, and then line them up alternatively. And what I love about the fig leaf is it's full of like the essence of a fig, so it's quite nutty and fruity and like very aromatic. So you can compare it to like when we're cooking them together, it'll be kind of like a dolma, which is like a grape leaf wrapped around like a marinated rice. So it'll be edible. I mean, you don't have to eat it, but it'll be edible, and like it'll transmit the flavors into the mushroom and fully mingle. So we're gonna put the mushroom right on top. Brush a little bit of olive oil and a little salt before I close it up. And then we'll start by wrapping them in together, and they don't have to be like perfectly like shut, but enough to close it up. It's gonna take a little bit of work to tie these and get them to what you want, but it's worth it. And don't be worried about being a perfectionist. All that you're worried about doing is wrapping up your mushroom. And then I'm gonna set it up with the open side down. And there we have one. Now I think they're ready to start throwing on the grill. We're just gonna let them do their thing now. Now that we have all of our beautiful components together, it's time to start chopping our fresh produce. So we're gonna start with our tomatoes. I love these heirloom tomatoes because they come in so many different colors and forms, and they're really nice to look at. I think in the summer I really try to eat things that look really colorful and feel like I'm eating the rainbow, because throughout the seasons things kind of like dull down and they come back, so I want to embrace that. I'm just gonna start by cutting it. I like adding a nice stone fruit because this white nectarine is so beautiful and it has like a nice refreshing element. I would say like white nectarine has like, kind of reminds me of like white tea in a way, where it's like very, not your yellow nectarine, but it has more of a elusive flavor more towards it. Has a nice texture, and I think the color is just so different compared to like all the other juicy fruits this season. And then you just want to pop out that seed if you can, and if it looks ugly you can always eat it. And now we'll work on our cucumber. I just like to cut the edges off. You may peel the outside, but I like to keep it on because the fiber is nice and it's nice flavor and texture, especially if you know where you're getting your produce from. It's nice to eat the skin. So I'm gonna cut this lengthwise to create some more dimension on the plate rather than on a coin. So I'm gonna cut it halfway, and then one more time, and then maybe cut like this for something more organic. So now we can start plating. We're obviously gonna plate with one of our barbecued marinated mushrooms in a fig leaf, but first we're gonna cut off the strings. And your strings are also compostable if they are just like fully cotton. That would count as like your brown in like the compost pile, versus like, oh, this would be green, but this is like gonna help break that down a little bit and create some dimension. I'm gonna put that to the side and going to start putting maybe a little bit of our cilantro oil on the bottom. Give it a nice base. And then our tomato, and then go in with a bit of our greens. I'm gonna use some purslane. This is commonly like a weed in a garden, but it's like one of the most nutritious greens that you can have. Oh, and we want to add our fruit, a few pieces of those. Top with a bit more of this oil. You can place this right in the middle. Cut some lemon, put that on top. And then finish with some flowers. I harvested these different flowers in the garden. Most of them are pansies. I'm gonna put this purple one here. Maybe a nice spicy nasturtium. This is my favorite flower. I would say it's like the Szechuan pepper of like the flowers, where it's like so many flavors are unfolding at once and they kind of just keep happening like after you've swallowed it. So it's quite spicy and sweet. Cilantro flowers, which kind of brings back to the coriander that's inside of the mushroom. A little salt. Maybe a little nasturtium petal. Before we dive into this, I'm going to sprinkle some of these sunflower seeds on the top of this. I like how they're dark and they add a bit of depth to the plate, and I know that they're going to be a nice element of crunch and texture. Yeah, the salad is just one of my favorites because it's just full of like nice and fresh produce, and you put most of your effort and energy into the mushroom that's been marinated and into the cilantro oil, and then everything else just kind of speaks for itself. I'm ready to dive in. Thank you so much for joining me for this delicious summer salad that I could share with y'all. I hope you can enjoy this on your own. Cheers!